In a harrowing dispatch that would set the tone for a chilling investigation, a frantic voice echoed through the 911 call center.
"We think we found a dead body,"
came the urgent plea. Samira Watkins, a young single mother with dreams as bright as the morning sun, was striving to build a better life for her 4-year-old son. As she pursued her studies to become a dental assistant, she encountered Zachary Littleton, a military man who captured her heart. But when Samira mysteriously vanished, an investigation reminiscent of an NCIS episode was set in motion. In a disconcerting twist, Zachary would later claim, "I felt like I had the motive to do something, but I really didn't do anything to that girl. I don't know what happened to her." As the investigation deepened, Detective Jonathan Thacker posed a crucial question. "Did you ever hear William say anything during this time about being upset with Samira or wanting to do her any harm?" The air was thick with tension as Jesse Weber, the narrator, welcomed viewers to Prime Crime, a platform dedicated to dissecting the most riveting true crime cases. When 25-year-old Samira Watkins disappeared near a Florida naval base, police had several suspects in mind. Yet, connecting any of them to the crime proved to be a daunting challenge that no one had anticipated.
911, where is your emergency?"
came the operator's voice.
"It's like a non-emergency,"
a distressed voice replied.
"Who is she?"
"It's my sister."
"And what is her name?" "Samira Watkins." "Where was the last place you saw her?"
The caller's voice trembled as she recounted her last sighting of Samira.
"The last place I saw her was on Thursday night around 8 o'clock.
An officer dispatched to the scene recognized the urgency of the situation, noting the suspicious circumstances surrounding the disappearance, and immediately contacted Detective Thacker to initiate an investigation. On Saturday, October 31st, 2009, in Pensacola, Florida, Detective Thacker engaged with 911 caller Sylvia Watkins, Samira's sister.
"Tell me from the very beginning everything that has happened that made you concerned about your sister's well-being," he urged.
Sylvia recounted the events leading up to her sister's disappearance. On Thursday night, when she got off work, she came home, got dressed, and was preparing to go to his house, she explained, her voice heavy with worry. Samira had just completed her shift as a manager at a local McDonald's restaurant. After arriving home, she quickly changed and informed her family of her plans to meet her boyfriend, Zachary Littleton. Zachary, a 24-year-old member of the United States Navy stationed at the Pensacola Naval Air Station, had sparked excitement in Samira's life. She envisioned a promising future with him, bright with potential. Sylvia recalled, "She asked me to drop her off, but I was too tired. I had already fallen asleep." With that, Samira left, unaware of the impending tragedy.
"It was around 9 o'clock in the evening," Sylvia continued. "So she drove herself over, but we don't know where she went. She said she was going to his house."
"Is that the last time you heard from her?" Thacker pressed.
"Yes,"
Sylvia confirmed, her heart heavy with the weight of uncertainty. Samira Watkins, at just 25 years old, was not only a devoted mother, but also the eldest of 5 siblings. Juggling her responsibilities as a mother and a fast food restaurant manager, she was also pursuing her education.
"Did she ever say anything to you that would make you think she would just need to get away?" Thacker inquired.
Sylvia shook her head, declaring,
"That's just out of her character. No, she never made any comments like, 'I just need to get away from things,' or anything like that."
When Samira failed to return home, her family and friends were gripped by concern. "When did you start calling her?" Thacker asked, sensing the urgency in the air.
"I started calling her that Friday morning,"
Sylvia replied, her voice laced with anxiety. Throughout the day, concern escalated as calls went unanswered. Initially, the phone would ring before diverting to voicemail, but now it seemed to bypass the ringing altogether. Samira Watkins had stopped responding to her family, leaving them in a state of growing anxiety. The following day, driven by worry, her sister ventured to Zachary Littleton's home to search for her. It was there that she encountered an unsettling revelation. Around noon, accompanied by a cousin, she knocked on the door, but silence met their inquiry. With no reply, they turned to the neighbors, who revealed that Zachary was seen loading a couch onto a truck, claiming he needed a larger space for his wife and children. This revelation was shocking. Zachary Littleton was living a double life, married with a child, while he had introduced himself to Samira under the name Ricky. The truth about Zachary was further complicated. His wife, also in the Navy, was scheduled to relocate to Pensacola from South Carolina the following week. Meanwhile, Samira had just discovered she was pregnant a month prior, a fact that would soon unravel the fabric of their relationship. Upon sharing the news of her pregnancy, Samira was met with hostility. Zachary expressed his disdain for the situation, stating he did not want any more children and that he was not supposed to step outside his marriage. His reaction was chilling. He urged her to terminate the pregnancy. Samira recounted to her sister the dark turns their conversations took. Initially, she had seen a different side of him, but upon learning of her pregnancy, his words became menacing. Threats of violence and declarations of detachment filled their exchanges. Fearing for Samira's safety, the Pensacola police reached out to Florida State Prosecutor Bridget Myers Jensen. She became involved early in the investigation due to the suspicious circumstances surrounding Samira's disappearance. Zachary Littleton quickly emerged as a key suspect. The evidence pointed to him. He had recently learned of Samira's pregnancy and was visibly upset about it. Moreover, he was the last person known to have been with her on the night she vanished. Detective Jonathan Thacker made contact with Littleton. "Hey, how you doing? This is Ricky. This is Thacker." He initiated the conversation, only for Zachary to promptly correct him, revealing his true identity. The discrepancy in names raised immediate red flags. When Thacker mentioned Samira, Zachary feigned unfamiliarity, repeating her name back as if he had just met her. "Samira? Sammy?" he asked, a strange nonchalance in his tone, as if he were discussing a mere acquaintance rather than someone reported missing. Thacker pressed on, inquiring if Zachary knew her whereabouts. "No, I don't," was his dismissive reply, signaling a potential cover-up. Thacker informed him of the gravity of the situation, stating, "She has been reported missing." In a surprising twist, Zachary Littleton quickly clarified his identity, asserting he was not Ricky, but Zach. This revelation raised eyebrows as his name diverged from what Samira's family had previously stated. As the inquiry progressed, it became clear that Zach had a connection to Samira. In an exchange, he acknowledged, "Samira? Sammy?" She called herself Sammy, as if he barely recognized her. When investigators asked if he knew her whereabouts, his reply was an indifferent, "No, I don't," revealing a troubling lack of concern given the circumstances. The detective delivered the grim news, informing Zach that Samira had been reported missing and that they needed to speak to him in person. He was, after all, the last person known to have seen her alive. In a bid for clarity, the detective asked Zach to come down for an interview. Zach responded affirmatively. Revealing his military affiliation, he worked for the Navy as part of the NSA Police Department. Hearing that Zach was a military police officer led the detective to wonder if someone in his position could truly be capable of causing harm, let alone someone going missing. The revelation that Zachary Littleton served as a military police officer stirred a glimmer of hope in the minds of those following the case. It was difficult to fathom that someone entrusted with law enforcement duties could be capable of causing harm or making someone vanish without a trace. The investigator's mind raced with questions. He needed to hear Zachary's explanation for Samira's sudden disappearance. He pressed, curious about the nature of their relationship. How long had he known her? Zachary, with a casual demeanor, replied that he had known Samira for several months, perhaps even a year. When asked about the last time he had seen her, he recalled dropping her off at home on Wednesday. Since then, he had seen her at no other time. As the investigation unfolded, Zachary claimed he had not seen Samira on the night of her disappearance, the 29th. This revelation struck the investigator as odd, given that she was supposedly headed to his house. The question loomed, had he truly been truthful? The investigator delved deeper, probing the nature of their relationship. Was it merely a friendship? Zachary's response hinted at a deeper issue. He was clearly unfaithful to his wife. Yet, he had to tread carefully. As a military man, he risked disciplinary action for any hint of adultery. The investigator sought assurance, urging Zachary to speak freely without fear of consequence. In a moment of vulnerability, Zachary admitted they had been intimate a few times, yet he insisted that their connection was purely platonic. He reflected on his behavior, contemplating whether he had inadvertently led Samira to believe their relationship was more significant than he perceived it to be. For Samira, meeting Zachary was transformative. He was a handsome military man, charming and seemingly grounded, someone she envisioned a future with. Zachary recalled a moment when he caught Samira admiring him with a look of adoration, prompting his internal conflict. Despite this admiration, he had resisted her advances. At the outset, it seemed she was eager to play a significant role in his life. However, when investigators questioned Zachary about his feelings towards Samira, his reaction was dismissive, almost nonchalant. If this was merely a fling, they wondered, why did he seem so indifferent to her emotional state? During the interrogation, as investigators probed into his feelings about Samira, Zach displayed a cavalier attitude. His nonchalance raised red flags. If this was merely a fleeting romance, where did that leave Samira? The investigator pressed further, questioning if Samira had ever approached him to declare, "This is your baby." Zachary's answer was evasive, asserting she had never confirmed any pregnancy. When asked if he felt any concern over the possibility that the child could be his, he coldly dismissed the notion. It became evident that Zachary had no desire to be involved in Samira's life or with any potential child. His double life was complicated enough. He was married with a child already. He'd even tried to persuade Samira to terminate any pregnancy. Samira, however, was resolute in her desire to keep the baby. The investigator turned the conversation back to the night of the 29th, seeking clarity on Zachary's whereabouts. He claimed to have spent the night at home, preparing for an impending move the following day. Zachary described a night spent boxing up his belongings, surrounded by his wife and daughter, who were set to arrive the next day. They were leaving the small apartment for a larger home, a decision he had initiated. He recalled the mundane details of packing, seemingly untroubled by the gravity of the situation surrounding Samira's disappearance. The investigator noted the stark contrast between his domestic life and the chaos that had enveloped Samira's world. Zachary was living in an apartment in Pensacola, preparing for the arrival of his family, unaware that the shadows of his secret life were closing in. The investigation was just beginning, and the truth was yet to unfold. Zach mentioned plans to leave their apartment for a larger home, suggesting a future together. He recounted that night's events, but the details remained vague and unsettling. In the early hours of the morning, Zachary Littleton was busy packing, meticulously organizing his belongings into boxes, preparing for a move the very next day. When questioned about Samira's whereabouts, his response was evasive, cloaked in uncertainty as he muttered, "I don't know," with a hint of flippancy in his tone. Zachary insisted he bore no responsibility for Samira's disappearance, asserting, "That's why we're here." It was clear that he felt cornered yet unperturbed by the gravity of the situation. Zachary's indifference was chilling, revealing a lack of genuine concern for Samira's fate. His apparent desire to keep the affair under wraps raised suspicions, yet it was uncertain whether this hinted at his involvement in her vanishing. After Zachary vacated his apartment, law enforcement seized the opportunity to investigate the space he left behind. They searched for clues that might reveal a crime scene, yet found no blood or signs of a struggle. This lack of evidence led them to consider that their focus on Zachary might be misguided. Determined to uncover the truth, investigators dug into Samira's past. They discovered that she had a boyfriend, William Peters, who had recently been released from prison. Peters was not merely a distant figure. He was the father of Samira's 4-year-old child. Delving deeper into Samira's past, investigators uncovered a connection to William Peters, her boyfriend who had recently been released from prison. He was also the father of Samira's 4-year-old child. The revelation of Samira's troubled relationship with Peters was a significant lead. His history of violence and the recent timeline of his release from prison positioned him as a potential suspect in her disappearance. The question loomed large. Could the father of Samira's child have played a role in her vanishing? As the investigation deepened, Detective Jonathan Thacker made his way to the family of William Peters, seeking answers. Detective Thacker probed Linda Nobles, William's mother, asking if she had heard any threatening remarks from her son regarding Samira, particularly on the date of her last sighting, October 29, 2009. Linda confirmed that she had not seen Samira that day, and noted that Samira was supposed to drop off her child, but never arrived. Days had passed since Samira Watkins was last seen alive, and the investigation intensified. Linda, a key figure in the unfolding drama, revealed her son's violent past, which only heightened suspicions regarding his involvement in Samira's disappearance. Detective Thacker continued his inquiry into William's whereabouts that fateful day. Linda confirmed that William was supposed to have a job working alongside her daughter in janitorial cleaning, which provided him with a night shift immediately following his release from incarceration. The detective sought to establish an alibi for William, questioning if he could account for his actions during the critical window when Samira went missing. The pieces of this unsettling puzzle were beginning to take shape, and the investigation was far from over. With each revelation, the narrative grew darker. Samira's fate hung in the balance, and the search for truth continued amidst a web of lies, deceit, and an unsettling past that refused to be buried. Detective Thacker pressed on, determined to uncover the truth. He sought clarity on why Samira had failed to show up to drop off her child, a detail that weighed heavily on the hearts of those who loved her. The stakes were rising, and with every inquiry, the shadow of William Peters loomed larger. As the investigation continued, the truth awaited, hidden within the shadows of a troubled relationship and unanswered questions. Zachary's alibi, the dynamics of Samira's life, and the sinister undertones of her past intertwined, leading investigators deeper into a chilling narrative where nothing was as it seemed. After his release, William quickly found work, cleaning businesses during the night, a seemingly innocent occupation that concealed a more sinister reality. As the clock ticked toward 11 p.m. on the night of October 29th, William Peters returned home after a long day of cleaning. Upon entering, he greeted his companion and asked if the fryer was plugged in, eager to prepare something to eat. He then moved to the back, where he began cooking before settling down to watch television. Throughout the evening of the 29th and into the morning of the 30th, William remained inside the home, never stepping outside that night. Investigators had confirmed that William Peters was indeed on a cleaning crew that night, establishing a solid alibi that effectively ruled him out as a suspect. But there was another factor that further convinced the detectives of his innocence. When William learned that Samira Watkins was missing, his reaction was one of profound distress. Concerned for her safety and the well-being of their child, he displayed genuine worry, a stark contrast to the indifference shown by Zachary Littleton, the man entangled in a secret affair with Samira. William understood the gravity of the situation. If Samira remained unfound, their child could potentially face a future without a mother. His emotional turmoil painted a clear image of a caring father, while Zachary Littleton's demeanor failed to reflect such concern. Detective Jonathan Thacker shifted his focus back to Zachary Littleton, the man whose clandestine affair with Samira had led to her pregnancy. Thacker summoned Littleton for another round of questioning. In response to Thacker's inquiry about whether his wife was aware of his dealings with Samira, Zachary dismissively replied that it wouldn't matter, as his spouse knew he had many friends, even if she didn't know their names. Zachary went on to reveal that he owned at least 2 cell phones, and as the interview progressed, he became increasingly open about one of those phones being designated for receiving calls from women. Known amongst his peers as a player, Zachary was somewhat boastful about his numerous relationships. Later in the conversation, he casually mentioned that Samira was merely one of several extramarital affairs he was juggling. The detective discovered that one of Zachary's phones was a burner phone, a disposable device purchased from a convenience store. These phones required minimal personal information for activation, allowing for anonymity. Zachary explained that he had a Boost mobile phone, and Samira used that number to contact him. He abruptly cut off that line, citing harassment from unwanted text messages as the reason. His decision to shut down the line only illuminated the type of person he was, a man more concerned with his own comfort than the implications of his actions. As the detective listened to Zachary's words, a troubling realization began to form. He exhibited a casual disregard for both his relationship with Samira and the impending responsibility of fatherhood. While discussing Samira, something about Zachary's tone struck Detective Thacker as peculiar. He attempted to piece together a mental image of the young woman, eager to understand her mindset and possibly uncover her whereabouts. Thacker sought to recreate her essence in his mind, envisioning a calm demeanor that contrasted sharply with the chaos surrounding her disappearance. Samira Watkins was not just a name, she was a mother, a sister, and a person whose life had abruptly changed. Zach contemplated Samira's demeanor, striving to understand her mindset. He described her as a calm individual, a trait that contrasted sharply with the chaos surrounding her disappearance. She was the feisty type, a woman known for her calm demeanor and kindness. Many who knew Samira Watkins viewed her as someone with the potential to be a remarkable person. Yet, in a chilling twist, those who spoke of her, including Zachary Littleton, often referred to her in the past tense, despite her being a missing person. It is a stark reality that many missing individuals are found alive, yet here was Zachary, indicating something more sinister had transpired. His choice of words raised unsettling questions. What had really happened to Samira in West Bend? Where was she now? As he pondered the situation, he expressed a vague hope that she was safe, but his words lacked conviction. What was he really hiding? I feel like he had a motive, he thought, yet he vehemently insisted that he hadn't harmed her. But the chilling reality was that Samira had not shown up at his house on Thursday. Zachary Littleton was stonewalling investigators, leaving them with more questions than answers. Samira was pregnant, a fact that weighed heavily on Zachary. He was desperate to protect his family and career. In the military, adultery is a serious offense, and the implications of a child with his mistress could unravel everything he held dear. Detective Jonathan Thacker found himself at a dead end with Zachary Littleton. But just as the investigation seemed to stall, a startling turn of events unfolded. On the very next day, just 4 days after Samira vanished, an urgent call came in. "Sir, it's 911. What's your emergency?" The voice on the other end reported something shocking. "We think we found a dead body." The caller described a heavy duffel bag, large enough to fit on a train, stained with what appeared to be blood and secured with a lock. On Tuesday, November 3rd, authorities were alerted to the discovery of this bag, washed ashore near the Pensacola Naval Air Station. The jet skiers who found it sensed the gravity of the situation and called the police. A horrid smell emanated from the bag, making it clear that something was very wrong. Inside the bag, curled in a fetal position, lay the body of a black female. It was Samira Watkins. The horrific sight revealed duct tape wrapped tightly around her chin, extending just below her eyes. Clothed only in a bra, her lifeless body was otherwise nude, a victim of unspeakable violence. The discovery was chilling. Samira's body was found stuffed inside a duffel bag, only partially clothed, with a bra as her sole covering, a haunting image that spoke volumes of the tragedy. This discovery marked a pivotal moment in the investigation. The case had shifted from a missing persons inquiry to a homicide investigation. The medical examiner determined that Samira had been asphyxiated, a brutal suffocation that left a community reeling. This grim finding marked a pivotal moment in the investigation. What began as a missing persons case had swiftly morphed into a homicide investigation, with the medical examiner confirming Samira had been asphyxiated. The detective speculated that strangulation was the method of murder. Further examination revealed a crucial clue. During the autopsy, duct tape was found around Samira's head, removed to uncover a startling detail. It was discovered that Samira wore only one gold hoop earring, a significant piece of jewelry that held deep sentimental value for her. Family members confirmed she wore them consistently. Surveillance footage from the fast food restaurant where Samira worked just hours before her disappearance showed her wearing both earrings. The absence of one raised questions. Had it fallen off during a struggle? In a chilling deduction, investigators theorized that Samira Watkins had likely lost her earring during a violent altercation, its absence marking the very spot where she had been assaulted and eventually killed. The presence of the matching hoop earring would serve as a crucial link, pointing to the individual most likely responsible for her tragic death. The investigative team quickly zeroed in on Zachary Littleton as their prime suspect. However, the challenge loomed large, as they lacked direct evidence linking him to the heinous crime. In response, they enlisted the expertise of the Naval Criminal Investigative Service, known as NCIS, to assist in cracking the case. Given that their primary suspect, Zachary Littleton, was a member of the United States Navy, the investigators recognized the importance of reaching out to NCIS. Many witnesses and acquaintances of Zachary were also affiliated with the Navy, making their assistance invaluable. Working closely with NCIS during the investigation, Detective Jonathan Thacker initiated interviews with Zachary Littleton's friends, hoping to uncover vital information that could lead to a breakthrough in the case. As they delved deeper, the tension mounted. Would these interviews yield the evidence they so desperately sought? Speculation about Zachary's personal life surfaced, hinting at a tangled web of drama surrounding his relationships. One friend revealed that Zachary had gotten another woman pregnant, despite being married and having a child of his own. The implications of this situation weighed heavily on the investigation. Given these circumstances, investigators pondered what this could mean for their case. All signs seemed to point towards Zachary Littleton. In early November 2009, just days after the murder of Samira Watkins, investigators shifted their approach, attempting to unravel the mystery of who killed her and discarded her body near the Pensacola Naval Air Station in Florida. Could the Navy police officer, Zachary Littleton, be entwined in this dark tale? The investigation intensified as police conducted interviews with Littleton's friends and colleagues. They sought to establish his whereabouts on the fateful Thursday when Samira was last seen. A friend confirmed that he had last seen Zachary in the parking lot that evening, discussing plans for the following morning, a move from his apartment to his new house. Curiously, the friend recounted how Zachary had approached him about assistance with the move in that very parking lot. The timing was critical. The friend recalled it being around 10:10 or 10:15 p.m. Zachary Littleton had been at work earlier that evening, and after his shift, he had driven straight home. He arrived just moments before Samira would also appear. The very next day, following her disappearance, Zachary reached out to his friend early in the morning, texting around 7 a.m., while the friend was still asleep. Upon waking at 8:30, he saw a follow-up message from Zachary asking if he could come by 9. However, he couldn't arrive until 9:15. When they finally met at Zachary's house, they devised a plan for moving his belongings. As they prepared, Zachary backed up the truck and they began hauling furniture. During the process, the friend noticed something strange. He questioned Zachary about why his clothes weren't packed. Zachary nonchalantly replied that he wasn't bothered with luggage, having pulled his drawers out and left them untouched in the bedroom. When the friend left, those drawers remained behind, a stark contrast to Zachary's claims of having been busy packing all night. This detail only served to further unravel his alibi, casting an ominous shadow over his involvement in Samira's tragic fate. As the investigation deepened, the actions of Zachary Littleton that fateful morning raised alarm bells among detectives. A friend had come forward to share a startling revelation. On the early morning of October 30th, the day after Samira Watkins had vanished, Zachary appeared at her doorstep, knocking on her door at an unearthly hour of 5 a.m. He requested permission to do his laundry, a peculiar request for such an early hour. The witness recalled the oddity of it, wondering if Zachary often sought refuge at her home in the pre-dawn hours. Although he claimed he had been packing all night, it did little to assuage suspicions that he was attempting to hide something far more sinister. There was an unsettling feeling that lingered in the air, as the witness pondered the possibility that he might have been trying to eliminate evidence or even wash away traces of blood. Meanwhile, the investigation took a darker turn as Littleton's supervisor recalled a conversation from the night Samira vanished. He probed Zachary, seeking any pertinent details that might shed light on the case. Zachary had mentioned that Samira had come over, asking to spend the night. In a protective gesture, he claimed he took her back home, raising an immediate question: if he did return her home, then what had become of her car? This recollection contradicted Zachary's earlier statement that he last saw Samira on Wednesday. The timeline was beginning to unravel, and investigators sensed they were on the brink of a breakthrough. The emerging theory suggested that Samira had indeed made it to Zachary's apartment on the night of October 29th. It was likely that whoever had harmed her had used her own vehicle to dispose of her body, leaving a trail that would soon lead them to the truth. Days later, a neighbor would contact the police, reporting a red Ford Taurus parked in a driveway, abandoned for several days. When authorities arrived, they confirmed the worst. It was Samira's car. The theory was forming that after disposing of her body, Zachary Littleton had callously abandoned the vehicle. The investigation took a significant turn when law enforcement discovered Zachary's DNA on the steering wheel of Samira's car. In a striking contradiction, Zachary had previously stated he had never been inside her car, much less driven it. This revelation became a pivotal piece of the puzzle. On November 6th, investigators executed a search warrant at Zachary Littleton's residence. Although they had initially believed he was residing at an apartment at the time of the murder, they were aware that he could have easily moved evidence. During the search of his home, investigators discovered paper towels in one of the bedrooms that bore a striking resemblance to those found in the duffel bag containing Samira's remains. Additionally, a can of Clorox wipes, consistent with those found in the duffel bag, raised further suspicions. Yet, the most compelling piece of evidence emerged: an earring identical to one Samira Watkins had been known to wear. In a case already stacked with incriminating evidence, this earring became the smoking gun that linked Zachary to the crime. As investigators pieced together the timeline, their theory solidified. Samira had gone to see Zachary Littleton on the night of October 29, 2009. What transpired during her visit would soon unravel a chilling narrative of deception and tragedy. Inside the duffel bag lay critical pieces of evidence: Among them was a can of Clorox wipes, mirroring one that had been discovered within the same bag. Yet, the most damning piece of evidence, the jewel that could unravel the entire case, was an earring, a gold hoop earring that matched perfectly the one worn by Samira Watkins. While many items contributed to the investigation, this earring stood out as a smoking gun. With this crucial evidence in hand, investigators began to piece together the chilling narrative surrounding Samira Watkins. The prevailing theory suggested that on the night of October 29, 2009, Samira visited the apartment of Zachary Littleton. It was there, in the confines of his home, that the dark events of that night began to unfold. As investigators delved deeper into the timeline, they sought to reconstruct the final moments of Samira's life. The pieces were slowly coming together, painting a picture filled with ominous implications for Zachary Littleton. A neighbor bore witness to a heated argument between Zachary Littleton and Samira Watkins. That same fateful night, it is believed that Samira was suffocated, smothered, or otherwise asphyxiated within the confines of Zachary Littleton's apartment. In a chilling act, he wrapped duct tape around her face. He then callously placed her lifeless, naked body into a duffel bag. With a grim determination, he transported the duffel bag from his apartment and stowed it in the trunk of her car. Without a trace of remorse, he drove across town, discarding her body into the murky depths of the bayou. In pursuit of cold, hard evidence to confirm their suspicions, local authorities reached out to the NCIS. They sought assistance in leveraging new technology available at the time for cell phone mapping. Specifically, they focused on cell phone tower mapping. The detective knew he could retrieve the tower hits from the phone provider. However, with the involvement of NCIS, the mapping process would be streamlined. As he delved into Samira's phone records from the months leading up to her tragic death, he noted a pattern. Samira had been in regular contact with Littleton, but then abruptly, the communication ceased. A mysterious number surfaced, which he speculated marked the moment when Zachary decided to sever ties with Samira, opting instead for a burner phone to evade detection. On the day of her disappearance, this burner phone called her a staggering 11 times, serving as the primary contact. Thanks to the expertise of NCIS, they were able to track the cell phone's movements, pinpointing their locations through the nearby cell phone towers. This critical information not only tracked Zachary Littleton and Samira together, but also exposed glaring inconsistencies in Zachary's account of their movements and his claim of not having seen her. The evidence laid bare the truth. Samira was at work, then returned home, only to head back toward Zachary Littleton's residence. Contrary to Zachary's assertions during interviews that she had never arrived, the data revealed she indeed made it to his house. Instead of being at home all night as he had claimed, he was actually seen leaving his house, as evidenced by the tower hits, heading back toward the base. The cell phone data painted a damning picture, suggesting Littleton was en route to the very spot where Samira's body was ultimately discovered. Yet one crucial question lingered. How did Littleton return home when Samira's car was found 10 miles away? The location of Samira's car was starkly distant, roughly 10 miles away. The notion that Zachary Littleton could have simply walked home seemed implausible. This led investigators to ponder. Did he have an accomplice? Did a friend come to his aid? In that era, ride-sharing services like Uber were not yet prevalent, leaving only one possible option: a taxicab. Law enforcement contacted all local taxi companies, and to their relief, they located the cab that Zachary Littleton had taken. On his return from the heinous act of killing Samira, he had ordered a cab from a Waffle House situated about a mile from where Samira's car had been abandoned. They proceeded to that location, where they obtained video surveillance footage. The footage revealed Zachary Littleton inside the Waffle House around 4 o'clock a.m., conspicuously holding a can of Clorox wipes. He entered the establishment and requested to borrow their phone. Permission was granted, and he made a brief call, the details of which remained shrouded in mystery. In a twist that further complicated the investigation, officers located Zachary Littleton in a nearby Waffle House around 4 o'clock a.m., clutching a can of Clorox wipes. He entered the restaurant and requested to borrow the phone. After a brief conversation, which lasted only moments, he returned the phone and left, leaving a trail of questions in his wake. Zachary Littleton handed the phone back to the employee and stepped outside. In a matter of moments, a cab arrived to whisk him away. Surveillance footage captured a chilling scene as Littleton looked directly into one of the cameras. seemingly unaware of the implications. It became clear that Zachary Littleton was not as clever as he believed. The footage revealed him not only making a call for a taxi but also staring straight into the camera at the Waffle House, a moment that would come back to haunt him. While he called for the taxi, he clutched a tub of Clorox wipes, items typically associated with cleaning up blood and other incriminating evidence. The moment he appeared on camera with those wipes, Littleton's fate was sealed. Once the taxi records were analyzed and the body discovered, it became abundantly clear that Zachary Littleton would be our prime suspect. The video from the restaurant was merely the icing on the cake, confirming my suspicions. With growing confidence, I knew we could make an arrest on November 23rd, less than a month after Samira Watkins's murder. Police apprehended Zachary Littleton, charging him with first-degree premeditated murder, the very charge that would lead to trial. However, as we prepared for the trial, I realized that securing a conviction would be far from straightforward. My greatest concern lay in the fact that the evidence was entirely circumstantial. There were no eyewitnesses to the crime. I lacked forensic evidence that directly connected Zachary Littleton to the homicide. Without video footage of the actual crime, the circumstantial nature of the case weighed heavily on my mind. In such cases, I meticulously consider all possibilities. On June 27, 2011, in Escambia County, Florida, almost 2 years after Samira Watkins's murder, the trial against Zachary Littleton commenced. My strategy was to craft a timeline spanning from the summer when Zachary and Samira first met to November, when her body was uncovered and an earring was found in his residence. I aimed to weave in pieces of evidence that painted a damning portrait of Littleton's guilt. The defense capitalized on the absence of direct physical evidence. It became a significant challenge for us as prosecutors, given the lack of clear blood or DNA linking Littleton to the murder. We had to assemble the pieces of this intricate puzzle. Littleton opted not to take the stand. Although the jury did not hear his testimony, they witnessed his sociopathic lies during police interviews, where he questioned, "Was she saying that it was your baby? See, I know it is. It was my baby." Such fabrications revealed his consciousness of guilt. These lies illustrated his true character and signaled to the jury that he was not to be trusted. Throughout the trial, Zachary Littleton exuded confidence, bordering on arrogance. His focus seemed to be more on his attire than on the state's compelling evidence against him. The prosecution had a strong case, bolstered by the discovery of the gold hoop earring, arguably as close to a smoking gun as one could get in this situation. This piece of evidence directly implicated him in the heinous crime. How else could the other gold hoop earring have found its way into Zachary Littleton's apartment, if not by his own hand? Zachary's demeanor during the investigation was scrutinized closely, contrasting sharply with the mounting evidence against him. The state presented a formidable case, highlighted by the gold hoop earring, which was as close to a smoking gun as one could find in a case of this nature. This piece of direct evidence raised a haunting question. How could another gold hoop earring have found its way into Zachary Littleton's apartment if he was not the perpetrator of this heinous crime? The implications were chilling, and the investigation was poised to uncover the truth behind Samira Watkins's tragic fate. The investigation took a pivotal turn as cell tower records emerged, revealing the haunting truth that on the fateful night Samira Watkins vanished, she and Zachary Littleton were in the exact same area. Prosecutors discovered a powerful tool in their case: the chilling searches conducted on Zachary Littleton's computer. Among the most damning evidence were queries such as, how long does it take for a body to decompose? His internet history painted a sinister picture, filled with searches about disposing of a body in a landfill, methods to induce an abortion, and even questions like, does drinking vinegar cause an abortion? These inquiries evolved into disturbing research on how to accelerate human decomposition. What followed was an unsettling shift in his searches, wading into how to successfully pass a polygraph test. This timeline exposed a chilling progression, from contemplating the consequences of an unplanned pregnancy to his desperate attempts to evade law enforcement scrutiny. Such evidence was devastating for the prosecution. The implications were clear. Zachary Littleton had murdered Samira Watkins, intent on avoiding capture. The weight of circumstantial evidence was overwhelming. 3 days after the trial commenced, on June 30th, the jury began their deliberations. Remarkably, they reached a verdict in just 3 hours, a testament to the clarity of the evidence presented. With the timeline unambiguously established and his alibi thoroughly dismantled, jurors found themselves convinced, beyond a reasonable doubt, that Zachary Littleton was indeed the person responsible for the murder of Samira Watkins. The jury's decision was swift. They found Zachary Littleton guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. His demeanor during the trial sparked a visceral reaction among jurors, who perceived him as a man who manipulated trust for malicious ends. By gaining Samira's confidence, he deceived her into believing he was someone he was not. He embodied the traits jurors detest: a liar, a cheat, and ultimately, a killer. Zachary Littleton was sentenced to life in prison. With no chance of parole, justice had been served. Not only for Samira Watkins, but also for her unborn child and her 4-year-old son, along with the family that loved her dearly. Zachary Littleton was condemned to spend the rest of his life behind bars. At just 24 years old when the crime occurred, Zachary faced a long life ahead, all of it spent in confinement. The question remained, what had driven him to such a desperate act? Witnesses noted that Samira seemed stable, even sending text messages filled with emotion when she hadn't heard from him for days, prompting concern for her well-being. Yet, in a tragic twist, it appeared that the desperation grew within Zachary Littleton, pushing him toward murder. Being in the military, he faced the harsh realities of a code of conduct that condemned adultery. The discovery of his infidelity would surely threaten his rank. Even more alarming, if word got out that he had impregnated someone outside his marriage, the consequences would be dire. His wife had previously uncovered his indiscretions and issued an ultimatum. Another affair would end their relationship. This case was a tragic tapestry woven with youthful lives, decisions, and the desperate choices that led to a heartbreaking outcome. In the heart of a vibrant community, a beautiful and vivacious young mother, Samira Watkins, poured her soul into crafting a better life for herself and her small child. She was filled with dreams and aspirations, determined to create a future. Yet, in a cruel twist of fate, her life was abruptly snatched away, leaving behind a haunting void. The tragic reality of her untimely death, claimed by senseless violence, shattered the hopes of her family and friends, who now grappled with the devastating loss of a bright spirit. The aftermath of Samira Watkins's death unveiled a dark tapestry woven with lies and deceit. A young woman who sought nothing more than to elevate her life and that of her beloved son was tragically silenced. Now, her child stands alone, deprived of a mother's love, while her family mourns the absence of their cherished sister. The echoes of her laughter and warmth linger in the hearts of those she left behind. This poignant story is a somber reminder of the fragility of life and the cruel injustices that can extinguish a flame too soon. That is all we have for you on this episode of Prime Crime. Thank you for joining us in this exploration of a harrowing tale. I'm Jesse Weber, reminding you to stay safe as the search for justice continues.